Good morning, Marty. How are you?
Oh, great. Doing good.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in this garden? Maybe the history of what we've been doing?
Yeah, I believe it was 7 years ago, give or take, when we were asked if we would like to participate in the community garden. And we had already lived here a few years, never even tried to grow a garden because most of us don't have soil. So we jumped on the chance. It had been years since I gardened, at home personally. It was right after college, I think. And so when I was told it was going to be an organic garden, I'm not even sure organic was a word last time I gardened because I use chemicals. So this was a learning curve for me, and it's been fun. It's been an adventure. Learn how to tackle all kinds of challenges with insects with creative methods. And it's been fun sharing with all the other gardeners who initially started. Some realized that they didn't have time that it takes to grow a plot, and others have hung in there. And as we learn some of the techniques for weeding, we notice that everybody keeps their plot a little bit cleaner, which means we have less weeds down the road. In other words, if I keep my weeds from going to seed, there'll be fewer that blow into Rich's plot. So yeah, it's been fun.
So we've made some improvements over the years by adding, we started out with one water source. We now have one at the opposite end as well, so two altogether, hopefully making it easier for folks. Oh, and funny little things like putting the boards up between the posts so that the tools could lean against them, little trial and error lessons that we've had. What have you seen, or what do you see that we need to do going forward? Any changes or?
There's thoughts that I've had this summer, and it's really pretty simple. The gardeners that are here come at different times, and it's always fun to run into somebody because we're always comparing notes. I've got neem oil, help yourself to the neem oil if the cucumber beetles are all over your crops. Things like that. How we attack the cutworms. I've got extra dill, I have extra cilantro, and I'd like to share it, but if there's only one or two people here, those are the only folks that I tell. I'd like to get a chalkboard or a dry erase board or something that we can put up near the gate, so when everybody comes in, we can communicate those messages, so when they're here, they know what they can help themselves to or share hints or whatever. So I would say that's one improvement that we could do going forward. Other than that, what's done, the tilling and just providing the space is a gift that we're all very grateful for.
Well, and tilling, that's a great, that's a controversial topic. Some gardens prefer no-till methods. In this one, I would say, we have tilled straight through, and some of that has to do with the fact that some of our gardeners are better at weed control than others, and the tilling sort of helps level the playing field at the beginning of the season. What are your thoughts on tilling?
It does, yeah, that's a double-edged sword. I think because of the nature of our soil, the rocks, it does get compacted quite a bit. The tilling is probably better.
Okay.
The key though is to wait long enough because we have all the snow and we have a lot of water sitting here in the spring. It's hard to wait until the soil is dry enough, but the drier it is when it's tilled, the better soil structure you have to work with. So, and because the soil isn't that warm yet, end of May, there's really not that big a rush anyway. After considering all the options, tilling is probably the best for us.
Marty, we were talking about gardening organically and also problems with cucumber beetles. Can you tell us how you're helping? You mentioned neem oil and sharing that with people. I've also heard that we have some potato bugs this year that we've never had before. What are your thoughts on those? Pests.
Well, and I can't really speak to the potato beetles. I haven't been growing potatoes. The cucumber beetles just showed up this year. I suspect they came in, they hitchhiked on plants that came from out of the area because no one in the area has ever had experience with cucumber beetles. So that's my suspicion. In terms of control, we started out with diatomaceous earth, dusting the plants with that. neem oil, and I think we started soon enough, but nevertheless we're not able to keep up, and they jumped onto everything. They were all over all of our plants. So we attacked them pretty heavily, and in most cases the plants grew out of the initial damage. Ironically, last year I had a hard time getting my pumpkins pollinated, so I had to hand pollinate a lot of them. This year I found cucumber beetles in all the flowers doing the pollinating. So the insect that almost killed the plants ended up giving us a lot of pumpkins. So that's kind of funny. But nevertheless, I would much rather hand pollinate or rely on the bees, which we had back this year, to do that job. So yeah, it's been an education, and hopefully we don't have new challenges. The cutworms have been here since the beginning. Some years are worse than others. A lot of ways to attack those. We use diatomaceous earth, eggshells, coffee grounds. We use little rings around the seedlings once they're planted to keep the cutworms from coming in. You know, I'd lay bacon in the rows if I thought that would help. You know, I'll do anything to keep, because once your plants are established, you know, they're fine.
Yeah.
But it's those early stages, they just will mow down a whole row. They even attacked my onions this year. That's never happened before.
Tell us about your seedlings. Where are you getting your starter plants?
There are just a few things that I grow from seed. This year I did my kale, broccoli, rutabaga, and beets, just to get a jump start and to stay ahead of the cutworms. And I start them indoors. Oh, at basil too, I started that. And I start them indoors where it's warm, and then nice days I take them out. It's a balancing act because you can't do it too early, because you have to be able to put them outside where they're exposed to cooler temperatures and the breeze, which makes a stouter plant. If you just grow them inside where they may get light but they don't have the wind, they end up being too spindly, and once you plant them in the garden they'll flop right over. So it's rather date critical when your seedlings go in.
What time or when have you started planting your seeds? How early?
Indoors or in the garden?
Indoors.
Indoors, probably April.
Latter
part of April.
So I know this was the first year for me that I started some plants from seed, and oh, what a joy it is to harvest a tomato from a plant that started out as a seed in your own home. That's just, it's thrilling, really.
It is, yeah. Yeah, the produce we get is a bonus for all of our...
Exactly. How about, have you done any winter sowing at all? Have you tried that up here?
Typically, I didn't do it this year. Typically, I grow a second crop of carrots, which overwinters, and as long as we can get into the garden early, as soon as the snow goes, even when it's really muddy, that's when they need to come out. Otherwise, they go soft. But the bonus is they're very sweet, sweeter than any carrot that you'll grow in the summertime.
One of the blessings that we have with this garden, this particular site, is it has a high water table, but that's also a curse when it comes to trying to plant early in the spring.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you haven't, as far as winter sowing, you've not tried anything with milk jugs out in the snowbanks and starting plants that way yourself?
I have not.
Oh, that's a fun thing to
Sounds like
do.
there's adventures ahead if we have time and energy.
Yeah, and then on the other side of that, it's seed collecting too. Have you done any seed collecting or harvesting for next year?
I have not. I go online in January, and Johnny Seeds gets my $80 order every year.
Good job. Yeah, but bringing, back to an earlier conversation, bringing plants in, starter plants from other areas can introduce some pests, right? So
yes.
Okay, something to think about. So Marty, how much time do you find that you're spending in the garden?
I like to say that I'm here an hour a day. In the spring, when you're prepping the beds, maybe a little bit more, and maybe that's just because I'm excited to be here and really am enjoying the space. But typically, whether I'm weeding, watering, harvesting, any kind of maintenance, I'm here for about an hour. I'm not going to get it all done, but I do enough to be satisfied and go home, and then the next day I come back and spend another hour. And as the season goes on, it gets easier. Like this time of year, end of August, we don't have to spend that much time. We just come in and harvest and occasionally water, but that's it.
What do you do with all that you harvest?
Oh, we've been canning, freezing, eating, and we give a ton away.
Yeah, you do
So,
share a lot. Thanks
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, and it's very fun.
So Marty, I see a lot of orange orbs at your feet. Where are you now?
Well, this is my pumpkin patch. I had never grown pumpkins before until about 3 years ago and decided I would give it a try. And consequently, I've learned how to grow pumpkins. I put the fabric down, cut little holes so I don't have any weed issues. I use the number 10 cans with a little hole in the bottom for my drip irrigation. So watering is simple, and you know, other than the cucumber beetles, it's been a pretty easy crop. And then sometime in October, when the pumpkins are ripe and ready to be cut, the Copper Harbor School kids come over one afternoon, and they each get to pick out their own pumpkin, and I cut it for them, and they get to take it home. So it's very worthwhile, and it's a fun thing to do.
We are pretty lucky to have the school right next door. There's nothing more exciting than sharing a garden with children, I think.
Well, absolutely, and it's a learning opportunity for them also.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kids never have the chance to see where their pumpkin comes from, so this is good.
Mr. Pumpkin.